The night my wife's best friend whispered, "Take me somewhere private," I thought she was about to destroy my marriage. I was wrong. She was about to tell me the truth about it. And somehow, that truth hurt even more. My name is Ethan. I was 27 and living in Charlotte, North Carolina. I worked at a furniture store during the day, rented a small 2-bedroom apartment with my wife, Natalie, and spent most evenings pretending I wasn't exhausted. Natalie and I had been married for 3 years. We weren't perfect. But I thought we were solid. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. Her best friend was Claire. I'd known Claire almost as long as I'd known Natalie. She was around so often that she stopped feeling like a guest. She knew where we kept the coffee. She knew which cabinet had the extra plates. She even knew the Wi-Fi password. Whenever she came over, she'd kick off her shoes by the door and say, "I'm not staying long." She always stayed for hours. Claire was funny, quiet when she needed to be, and strangely observant. She noticed things other people missed. Like when I was pretending to be okay. Or when Natalie was upset but didn't want to admit it. For a long time, I thought that was just who she was. I didn't realize she was watching my marriage fall apart. The first sign came on a Tuesday. Natalie came home around 9. She put her purse down. Didn't kiss me. Didn't even ask how my day was. She just walked into the bedroom. I remember staring at her back as she disappeared down the hallway. I wanted to ask what was wrong. Instead, I said, "Dinner's in the fridge." She stopped. "Thanks." That was it. 2 words. Then she closed the door. I told myself she was tired. People have bad days. Marriages have bad weeks. I wasn't going to become the husband who panicked every time his wife got quiet. But then the quiet became normal. She stopped telling me little things. The funny thing that happened at work. The annoying customer. What she wanted to do that weekend. Those tiny conversations disappeared first. And I didn't realize how important they were until they were gone. A few weeks later, Claire came over. Natalie was in the kitchen making coffee. Claire sat across from me at the table. She studied me for a second. Then she asked, "You doing okay?" I smiled. "Yeah." She didn't smile back. "You sure?" "Yeah." Claire nodded. But she didn't believe me. I could tell. That night, after she left, Natalie asked, "What were you and Claire talking about?" "Nothing." She looked at me. "Okay." Something about the way she said it bothered me. Not angry. Not jealous. Just careful. Like she was measuring every word. I should have paid attention. Instead, I went to bed. 2 weeks later, Natalie called me from work. "Can you pick up Claire? Now? Please." I looked at the clock. 10:47 p.m. What happened? She had dinner with some people downtown. She doesn't feel comfortable driving. Is she drunk? No. There was a pause. She just needs a ride. So I went. Rain had started falling by the time I reached the restaurant. Claire was standing under the awning. She wasn't drunk. She wasn't even holding a drink. She looked tired. Really tired. She opened the passenger door and quietly said, "Hey, hey." I pulled away from the curb. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. The rain became heavier. The streets were almost empty. Then Claire asked, "Is Natalie okay?" I laughed. "You're asking me?" She looked at me. "Yeah. She seems fine." Claire looked back out the window. "She doesn't seem fine." I tightened my hands around the steering wheel. "What does that mean?" "Nothing." "Claire." She sighed. "Just keep driving." I didn't like the sound of that. We were almost at her apartment when she suddenly said, "Don't take me home." I glanced at her. "Why?" "I need to tell you something." My stomach tightened. "About Natalie?" She didn't answer. I drove another block. Then she whispered, "Take me somewhere private." I nearly missed the next turn. For a second, I couldn't speak. My brain immediately went somewhere it shouldn't have. Claire noticed. "No." She shook her head. "Ethan, not like that." I felt embarrassed. "Then what?" She stared at the windshield. "I need you to hear something before you hear it from her." I pulled into an empty parking lot. Turned off the engine. The rain was pounding against the roof. Claire looked at me. Then she said the sentence that split my life into before and after. "Natalie is leaving you." I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because I genuinely didn't know what else to do. "What?" She told me. "When?" "A while ago." I stared at her. "How long is a while?" Claire looked down. 3 months. 3 months. She had known for 3 months. I felt something cold move through me. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because she asked me not to." "She asked you to keep my marriage a secret from me?" She was scared. I shook my head. She should have been honest. She knows. I looked away. Then Claire said, She doesn't hate you, Ethan. That somehow hurt worse. I whispered. Then why is she leaving? Claire's eyes filled with tears. Because she doesn't know how to be your wife anymore. I didn't speak. Neither did she. For several minutes, the only sound was rain. Then Claire said something I wasn't expecting. She thinks you're going to blame yourself. I looked at her. Am I? No. She wiped her cheek. But you're going to anyway. She was right. I hated that she was right. I went home that night and lay beside Natalie. She was asleep. Or at least I thought she was. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise. 3 months. She had known for 3 months. Claire had known. Everyone seemed to know except me. The next morning, I asked Natalie one question. Are you happy with me? She froze. She didn't ask why. She didn't laugh. She just looked at me. And I knew. Her eyes filled with tears. Ethan. That was all she said. I nodded. Okay. She started crying. I didn't. I couldn't. That conversation lasted less than 10 minutes. Our marriage had taken 3 years to build. It ended in less time than it takes to order lunch. Natalie moved out a week later. I thought that would be the worst part. It wasn't. The worst part was how normal everything looked afterward. Her coffee mug was still in the cabinet. Her coat was still hanging behind the door. One of her hair ties was still sitting beside the bathroom sink. The apartment looked like she had simply stepped outside. But she wasn't coming back. A few nights later, someone knocked on my door. It was Claire. She stood there holding a paper bag. I brought food. I don't need food. I know. She held it out anyway. I let her in. We sat at the kitchen table. Neither of us touched the food. Finally, I asked, why did you really come? She looked at me. To check on you. Why? Because nobody else was. I almost smiled. Almost. Then she said, you don't have to be strong around me. And that sentence broke something. I looked down. I don't know how to do this. I know. I thought I knew my wife. I know. I keep thinking there must have been something I could have done. Claire shook her head. No. You don't know that. I do. How? She looked at me for a long time. Because I watched her try to find a reason to stay. That hurt, but it was honest. Claire stayed that night. Not in my bedroom. Not even on the couch. She sat at the kitchen table with me until almost 3 in the morning. We talked about stupid things. Childhood memories. Bad jobs. People we'd lost. The places we'd never traveled. It felt strangely easy. And that's when I started getting scared. Because grief can make you confuse comfort with love. And loneliness can make a person feel like home. I knew that. But knowing something doesn't always stop you from feeling it. Over the next few weeks, Claire kept checking on me. A text. A coffee. A quick visit. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing obvious. But the silence between us started feeling different. One night, we were sitting on my balcony. She asked, do you ever think about starting over? I said, every day. With someone else? I looked at her. She looked away. Neither of us said anything. I mean, if you've been listening this far, I'd really appreciate it if you liked the video and subscribed. I don't usually tell people this part of my life. So if you're still here, thank you. Anyway, that night, Claire finally told me why she had been so distant before my marriage ended. She had been planning to leave Charlotte. She'd accepted a job in another state. She was going to leave without telling anyone. Especially me. I asked why. She said, because I knew I was starting to care about you. I couldn't breathe for a second. Claire, I know. You're Natalie's best friend. I know. This is wrong. I know. She looked at me. But feelings don't always ask permission. There was a long silence. Then she whispered, I never wanted to be the reason your marriage ended. You weren't. I know. She looked down. I still feel guilty. I moved closer. She didn't move away. For 1 second, we were both standing at the edge of something. Then she said, if we do this. She stopped. I waited. If we do this, I'll always wonder if you chose me because you loved me. Her voice cracked. Or because you were lonely. That stopped me. Because I didn't know. And neither did she. So we stepped back. She left. The next morning, Natalie called. She asked if Claire had been coming over. I hesitated. Yes. There was silence. Then Natalie asked, do you have feelings for her? I didn't answer. Natalie quietly said, that's what I was afraid of. What does that mean? I knew Claire cared about you. My stomach dropped. What? She told me. When? Before our wedding. I sat down. What are you talking about? Natalie began crying. She loved you first. I couldn't speak. Then Natalie told me the part Claire had never told me. Claire had liked me before Natalie and I even started dating. She had stepped away because she didn't want to hurt her best friend. Natalie had always known. And apparently, she had spent years wondering if Claire had made the wrong choice. I felt sick. All those years. All those dinners. All those conversations. There had been a story underneath my marriage that I never knew existed. After the call, I drove to Claire's apartment. She wasn't there. Her place was empty. She had already left. I called. Nothing. Then I noticed an envelope taped to the door. My name was written on it. Inside was a note. Just one page. She said she was sorry. Not for loving me, but for letting me become part of a decision that wasn't mine to carry. Then she wrote something that I still think about. She said, "You didn't lose Natalie because of me. She left because something between you had already ended. And I don't want you to spend the rest of your life believing I was waiting for my chance." Then came the last part. She said she had loved me once. Years before. Maybe she still did. But she didn't want to build a future with someone whose heart was still standing in the wreckage of his past. So she left. No goodbye. No dramatic ending. Just gone. I never saw her again. It's been years. Natalie and I eventually stopped blaming each other. We became strangers who occasionally remember that we used to know everything about each other. But Claire stayed different. Sometimes I still think about that rainy night. The parking lot. The windshield. Her voice. "Take me somewhere private." For years, I thought that was the moment she changed my life. Now I realize it wasn't. The real moment was later. When she had the chance to stay. And chose to leave. Because she understood something I didn't. Sometimes loving someone means refusing to become the person they run to just because they're hurting. I still have her note. It's folded inside an old book on my shelf. I never threw it away. Not because I'm waiting for her. I'm not. I keep it because there are some people you don't get to keep in your life. You only get to keep the version of yourself that existed because they were there. And sometimes, when it rains at night, I still think about what would have happened if I had kissed her that night. Maybe we would have been happy. Maybe we would have destroyed each other. I'll never know. And I think that's the part that hurts most. Not losing her. Not losing Natalie. But knowing there was one version of my life where I could have chosen differently. And I'll never get to find out whether it would have been better. Because sometimes the hardest goodbye isn't the one you say. It's the one you spend the rest of your life wondering what would have happened if you hadn't.